Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply fascinating and honestly pretty misunderstood area of psychology. We're going to look at how a difficult, unpredictable childhood doesn't just leave behind scars and pain. It actually, quietly and powerfully, rewires your entire brain. We so often think about difficult pasts strictly in terms of what they take away from us. But the psychological reality, it's way more complex than that. It's really about what your brain built to survive. So let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like you're just constantly on edge, even when things around you are perfectly fine? If you're someone who often feels like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, you might have spent years thinking, well, I'm just broken, or I'm overly anxious, or maybe even permanently damaged by your past. And man, that is a heavy burden to carry, right? Thinking that your default state of being is somehow just a massive flaw in your character. But let's go ahead and shatter that myth right now. The common belief is that trauma is just damage, period. But psychology shows us that growing up in an unsafe environment means you didn't just passively get through it. You strategically adapted. You evolved. You actually developed a very specific set of rare psychological traits that let you function at a remarkably high level. So no, you aren't broken. Your brain was rewired for survival. And today we're walking through 5 rare traits that prove exactly that. All right, trait number 1, the human radar. Sensing emotional shifts. Let's start with how you can read the emotional temperature of a room faster than pretty much anyone else. This brings us to a really fascinating concept called hypervigilance. While everyone else is completely oblivious to the subtle changes in a room, you instantly pick up on, say, a slight tightening of someone's jaw or a sudden tiny shift in their tone of voice. People might brush it off and tell you that you're just being anxious, but psychology tells us a totally different story. This is a highly developed survival skill. When you grow up where safety is conditional, your brain learns it absolutely has to scan for early signs of danger to stay protected. It's literally a radar system that kept you safe, and the reality is, it just never fully turned off. And that leads us right into trait number 2. Think about this for a second. Do you feel this intense internal pressure to keep everyone around you calm, happy, or stable? Look at how you navigate relationships today. Do you carry a disproportionately heavy sense of responsibility for the emotional weather of the people around you? That exhausting pressure, it stems from what's called early emotional role reversal. If you feel personally accountable for other people's moods, which usually leads to some intense guilt when someone is upset or just chronic people-pleasing, it comes from this early reversal. As a kid, you learned a brutal lesson. The only way to ensure your own peace was to manage the emotions of the adults around you. You regulated them just so you could be safe. Now, as an adult, you're carrying that incredible weight into every single interaction, feeling totally responsible for feelings that don't actually belong to you. Moving on to trait number 3, the trap of calm, when peace feels unsafe. Let's explore why actual peace and quiet might make you incredibly uncomfortable. For someone who grew up in chaos, calm can literally feel like a trap. Think about it. When your nervous system is deeply accustomed to high stress from a very young age, stability feels fleeting. Silence feels super strange. Your body essentially treats relaxation as something undeserved, or honestly, even dangerous. You might find yourself unconsciously picking a fight on a perfectly peaceful Sunday afternoon, or mindlessly scrolling on your phone just because the silence in the room is deafening. You aren't actively looking for stress, but your body is so used to surviving it that letting your guard down feels like a legitimate threat. Next up, trait number 4, defensive self-reliance, the illusion of independence. Because stability felt so fleeting and support was just inconsistent when you were young, your brain had to figure out how to handle every single problem entirely alone. Psychologists call this specific adaptation defensive self-reliance. It's basically the act of minimizing your own needs and strictly avoiding dependence on others. And why? Because early trauma taught you that the only person you can truly count on is yourself. To your subconscious mind, asking for help or relying on people at all feels like a massive risk you simply cannot afford to take. Now, the world probably praises you for this, right? They look at you and see extreme independence, competence, just incredible strength. But the internal truth is a lot different. This fierce independence wasn't some natural preference or a fun personality quirk. It was forged from absolute, sheer necessity. It wasn't a choice. It was literally the only way forward. Finally, trait number 5, the empathy paradox. Deep care, hidden pain. This whole journey has gifted you with profound emotional intelligence, for sure, but it also carries a quiet, dark side.
Because of your early pain, you understand suffering on a level most people just cannot grasp. It allows you to comfort others effortlessly, listening completely without judgment. But here's the catch. You rarely, if ever, show your own struggles. You hide your pain because you learned very early on that your emotions were considered inconvenient or fundamentally unsafe to share. So what did you do? You adapted. You carry your own strength quietly, completely hidden away, while flawlessly holding space for everyone else's needs.
So let's move into our final phase. Time to finally rest. From surviving to healing. As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to intentionally slow down. Take a deep breath with me and really let this next part sink in. Psychology is incredibly clear on this point. Your survival traits shouldn't be mistaken for your entire personality. Yes, your past gave you incredible resilience, crazy high emotional intelligence, and unmatched situational awareness. But those strategic adaptations, they were meant to keep you alive in a tough environment. They were never meant to define your entire existence or dictate how you have to live for the rest of your life.
You were literally never meant to carry the weight of the world forever. You've spent your whole life being exceptionally strong for everyone else, right? You've regulated the moods in the room, you've handled every crisis entirely on your own, and you've minimized your own needs just to make sure everyone else was okay. But man, that is exhausting.
It's time to realize this fundamental truth. You absolutely deserve the exact same safety, softness, and rest that you so freely and generously give to the rest of the world. You are allowed to put down that heavy and visible armor. You are finally allowed to extend that deep, non-judgmental empathy toward yourself. I want to leave you with this profound truth as you step forward today. You have already survived the storm. You don't need to keep fighting it. The emergency is over. So I'll leave you with this question. What would your life look like today if you finally gave yourself permission to just rest?